The invasion of Sicily in 1943 was a chaos of wind and crashing waves. Among the thousands of paratroopers dropped into the dark, mountainous interior was a young medic named Staff Sergeant Robert "Doc" Moore. He had drifted off course, separated from his unit, and landed in an olive grove that smelled of dry earth and ancient stone. As the sun began to crest the hills, he heard the low, ominous rumble of engines. It wasn't the American Shermans. It was the heavy, clanking metal of the German Tiger tanks. Doc Moore scrambled toward a small stone bridge that spanned a dry ravine near San Leonardo. There, he found a handful of paratroopers, barely 30 men armed, with nothing but light rifles and a few grenades. They were the only thing standing between a German panzer division and the vulnerable beaches where the main Allied force was still landing. "Doc, we've got casualties," a sergeant yelled. The battle was a meat grinder. The German tanks sat on the ridge, lobbing high explosive shells into the stone bridge. Shrapnel flew like jagged glass. Doc Moore didn't have a weapon. He had a canvas bag filled with morphine, sulfa powder, and blood plasma. He ran into the no man's land of the bridge. Every time a shell hit, the world turned into a blur of gray dust and red fire. He crawled from man to man, patching wounds while the stone beneath him vibrated with the force of the tank fire. At one point, a German soldier, a boy no older than 18, crawled out from a ditch, clutching his stomach and screaming in a language Doc didn't understand. The American paratroopers raised their rifles. "Don't shoot," Doc yelled, standing up. He walked into the middle of the line of fire, his Red Cross armband the only shield he had. The shooting stopped. For a surreal, suspended minute, both sides watched as the American medic knelt in the dirt to help the German boy. Doc didn't see a uniform. He saw a patient. He stabilized the wound, gave the boy a sip of water, and dragged him to the shade of a stone wall. Then he went back to his own men. The battle raged for 12 hours. By the time American reinforcements arrived with anti-tank guns, the bridge was a ruin, and Doc's medical bag was empty. He was covered in the blood of 2 different nations, his hands shaking with an exhaustion that went deeper than bone. When the smoke cleared, the paratroopers had held. The beaches were safe. Doc Moore survived the war and went back to a small town in Nebraska. He rarely spoke of Sicily. But years later, he received a letter from Germany. It was from a man who had been a boy in a ditch at San Leonardo, a man who had lived to have children and grandchildren because a medic had decided that the Red Cross was more important than the front line. On that bridge, Doc Moore hadn't won a territory. He had saved a piece of humanity from the fire.